the bad guys. We're just the guys trying to get home.
We don't get to walk off into the sunset.
Danny, everybody knows how dangerous you are.
Do you? You get your helos out of here now! I'm gonna get you back home, little brother. I'm gonna get everybody home.
So, Ambulance, very kind of fun, fast-paced, crazy car. I'm a sucker for like all car action films. Like I love Fast and Furious, all that stuff. So I had a total blast with this. And I wanted to know for the two of you, what was that filming experience like? Because I imagine it was quite different to other stuff that you've done because it was filmed in such a tight timeline and all that. So I guess, Yahya, if you want to start, what was that experience like?
You know, what I say is just filming this movie felt exactly like watching the movie. You know, it felt exactly like what the movie was, which means that sometimes it was really fast. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you could feel the tension. The tension was palpable. Sometimes the emotions were running high. You know, the stakes were always right in front of us. I mean, we're chasing the sun. You know, we only have about 30, you know, we've shot it in about 38, 39 days. We're in this small, tight, cramped ambulance. You know, we're laughing and singing, you know, so it was a lot of fun at the same time. You know, this was an all hands on deck experience. It was fast from the go. And it was, you know, it was an awesome way to shoot. You know, also, you know, you have to consider that we're shooting this during the pandemic, you know, as well. So we had to do all of those things while taking care of one another, being very considerate of everyone's time and health. And, you know, we really pulled together, I think, you know, to make this happen.
And Jake, for you, I read in a piece you were talked about in Esquire that you took the camera sometimes and started filming. So like, that must have been crazy. How did you do that? Just like, sorry, Michael, I'm just going to grab the camera now.
No, that didn't happen. That's his responsibility.
Yeah. So just, you know, an extension of what I was saying about this was an all hands on deck experience and shooting in the very tight quarters. Sometimes it just required, Mike would say, well, not sometimes. There was like one time,
once or twice.
I'm driving, Jake is sitting up there, and there's nowhere else there's no other way to execute that. So
Mike would just pass the camera onto my lap. You're like, you shoot him. I can't get him, and we're driving on an actual street, and the light is perfect. And if we had to switch, it'd be a thing. So that's kind of how it happened. But I feel like it's in reference to just the way the whole set felt, which was we were, like Yahya said, it was just sort of running and gunning from the beginning. And so we were all helping each other. You know, the space is so small in that ambulance, and so often there's no room to put in, you know, 6 additional people to make sure things are in order. You just have to go do a couple different jobs at the same time while you're driving 50 miles down the road and the light gets right and all. And that was what was fun about it. You know, that was the spirit of the whole thing, you know.
And that must have been unlike so many other, because you've both been in massive, you know, blockbuster franchises and smaller films and all that. So this must have been a very unique experience. Like necessity is the mother of invention, right? You had to adapt because of the space.
Scene in the LA River with the ambulance coming, like that was not scripted. And Michael just had 2 helicopters available for other sequences that day. And then access to the LA River for a second. We were supposed to go home, and he called me and said, come back. And then he planned that whole sequence, and that sequence was shot in the end of the day because he couldn't get another location. So the whole movie kind of, what was so fun about it is you never knew where you were going to go, where you're going to be shooting next. And I love that. Like, to me, being game for anything, you know, having a plan, but then scrapping it and trying something else. It's really, it did feel like the whole movie felt like a chase.
Yeah.
And I imagine you both had to trust each other quite a lot, not only with the character stuff, but also physically in that space. You know, that must have created that brotherly tension, right? Because there's that love-hate thing that you guys had.
There was no time to even think about trust. You know, we just,
that's so true.
We just jumped in. Acting is sort of like that sometimes when you get a good cast, and, you know, you can look someone in the eye and say, okay, I like this person. Okay, I think we're on the same page, and let's just go. You know, I remember choreographing the fight, like putting together that fight in the front of the ambulance. And that was just, okay, these are the moves. Okay, now we just play. Or switching seats inside of the ambulance, you know. It was, you know, definitely a camaraderie building, team building, bonding exercise.
Yeah, I mean, we both as actors, from the moment I met Yahya, it was this feeling of a very humble, very open-hearted person, and so you could trust each other. It was sort of, that was the foundation. And always asking questions, I think, about the scenes or the moments that could make them richer, deeper, you know. And for instance, the scene when we, you know, shoot at all the gangsters, you know, that was a culmination for us, and really a lot of different things all at once. And we brought idea after idea after idea, and a majority of that scene is improv. Both of us coming back and forth at each other with our own questions we've had the whole movie, and trying to make an argument and being open to each other because we knew we could trust each other. And the same thing for the fight sequence. It was like, I knew he was never going to do anything, you know, that would hurt me, you know, vice versa, but we knew we were going to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that like always, that comfort was always there between the two of us.
There's a silent dialogue happening, like at all times.
You do so much acting in isolation because you're in the back of the ambulance for a good chunk of that film. How did that affect the dynamic that you created with your co-stars?
It's so funny that you say that, because the first few weeks of us filming, I feel like we did go in chronological order. So I did film quite a lot by myself in the back. And you feel a little bit of FOMO at the beginning, because you hear them sort of having all these like relationship type of dynamics within the performance that they're doing. And you're sort of at the standby of like, am I going to have chemistry with them? If this is going to work, like all these things. And I kept on, you know, doing all the acting in the back. And so by the time that I had to have some of my first few scenes itself was with Jake. And I was really nervous because, of course, like, it's like Jake Gyllenhaal. And I was really starstruck, I'm not going to lie. And I had to, you know, sort of shake that off and be prepared. But it was nice that I got a couple weeks in without having to be in scene, because I also got really inspired and got to see it a little bit like an audience member from the back of what was going on. So it allowed me to sort of bring, okay, this is what they're doing with their characters or performances. So what layer can I bring, and what, you know, nuances can I bring to my performance that sort of ties neatly to what they're doing.
And I think also, when I was speaking to them earlier, it was such a unique filming experience because you had such a short amount of time and you were in such a physically enclosed space. How different was that for you from the other films that you've done? And how did that kind of impact? Obviously, you don't have time to be nervous in a way, right? Because you got such a tight schedule to work to.
The other day, Michael was saying how long it took us to shoot. It was like 36 days, 32 days. I mean, that's nothing. That's nothing for an action film. And it definitely, I think that ultimately I was really terrified, but also I was terrified because your adrenaline is naturally kicking in because you're in an ongoing ambulance in the middle of the highway in LA at 1,000,000 miles per hour. So I was quite nervous in that way, but ultimately I felt like, you know, I had the chance to work with some of the greatest people, and yeah, the result was quite, you know, the fact that you're in a small ambulance and the camera's right in front of you because of the nature of the space that we're in, it allows for such a different experience as an audience, because when your performance is sort of here is the actor's dream, because you're just sort of saying so much with your eyes. It's like you really pay attention. In most of my scenes, there's no that much dialogue. And the most important scenes for me, the most emotional scenes, I'm not talking. And that is sort of the beauty of having to adapt to specific films. Michael Bay usually shoots very close, but not as close as he does in this movie. And I think it added something new to his film style.
Absolutely. And one of the scenes, obviously, that was so tense was that surgery scene where you've got the computers and all that stuff. And I just thought it was informative of the kind of era we're living in terms of technology and all this stuff. But also it was such an interesting moment for your character, given what you learn about her and her past and the dreams she had that she wasn't able to fulfill. Was that an important kind of pivotal moment for you? Because I felt it as an audience member for that character, that was quite a pivotal moment. Did you have that same experience?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and it's so funny because that scene went through many iterations, and I had a lot of fights with Michael because that scene was originally longer, the aftermath of the surgery with Will. And at one point, they completely cut it out of the movie when I saw a cut, and I called Michael and I said, you can't cut that scene out of the movie. And he's like, why? It just doesn't work. And I was like, I think it does work. I think it's so important. It really is pivotal for the audience to understand why she's kind of such a bitch at the beginting, because she's just broken. It just explains that people are in a certain way because certain things have happened to them. They're hurting. And this is where we see her hurt. And it's sort of, she's given up. She's like her final straw. And then she has like a beautiful hero moment where like she reconnects with that passion there, where like that's what really pushed her into going to medical school. And then it's what cracks her open. And I was like, we need to find a way to bring this scene back into the movie. And then our incredible editor and him, I gotta credit Michael. He heard me, he understood, and he re-edited the scene and found a way to insert it again. And it really works. And I think that it's also really works between Will and Cam. It makes that bond that we need for, without spoiling the movie, towards the end of the movie.
Every kind of car chase felt super unique, which I think is quite rare and hard to achieve. Right. But I think the thing that compelled me most was the unique kind of filmmaking experience, because you're on a tight timeline in a tight space. And I wondered, to what extent did that impact how you approached the project as a whole?
Well, first of all, it wasn't, I rejiggered a lot of the script. I tried to add more elements. It was not supposed to be as big as it turned out. But I started just getting things for free, or LAPD. I mean, LAPD gave me 50 real cops, so it's all real SWAT, real snipers, real undercover. That's why they look all so real, because they are real. There are a lot of real LAPD tactics. We were shooting about 120 shots a day. Just for your audience might not know, an average movie shoots about 20, 25, 30 shots a day. We're doing 120. And I'm there. I'm a director that doesn't have a director chair, doesn't have a video village where you sit way over there. I'm with the camera, okay? I'm right there in the thick of it. And, it's just way more immediate, handheld. You're with the actors. You're right in front of them. You're in this claustrophobic space, sort of like Das Boat, that old movie that was very intense. You're in this ambulance, but it keeps coming out to the big world of everyone in LAPD trying to chase and manipulate, and there's a lot of psychology going on, how they're trying to chase their suspects with hostages. It helps the intensity. And I think the guerrilla filmmaking style and shooting it so fast helped the movie, because it's very hard for actors to stay at that intensity level. It's exhausting. I've done this a lot. It's like, they get exhausted because you're tensing your body, you're breathing, and it's just like, it just becomes hard. You can't do it all day, so you got to break it apart.
Absolutely. Were there any stunts? Because obviously, Jake and Yahya told me that the helicopter scene, and I've seen this in other reporting, was sort of improvised at the last minute because you got access to these helicopters.
It's not improvised. Listen, I shoot action very fast. Okay, I'm extremely safe. We did 1,000 stunts on this, not one Band-Aid. Okay. Those two helicopter pilots are two of the best in the world. Fred North, he's a French guy. And we had to get approval, obviously, to fly underneath. Once we had approval, it was just a scene I literally wrote on a Sunday. I said, I need a helicopter scene. We shot that whole scene in about 2.5 hours. And I told Jake, I said, Jake, I've been around these choppers and these guys a long time. I said, Jake, these choppers are going to come low. All right, you good with that? They're going to come right by here. He's going to be 20 feet from us, and he's going to dive right in. And he goes, okay. And he's like, he does it. He's like, what the way? He's like, and like Yahya, I said, dude, you're driving straight. And he's literally on the mic, Mike, there are two helicopters that were like right behind me. I said, don't worry, just keep driving, dude. Get off your hand off that walkie-talkie.
Well, like you said about the energy of it, obviously that translates so well. And one of the things that Jake and Yahya had mentioned was what you're saying is that by being in that confined space, it sort of forced them into that dynamic without doing necessarily all that kind of character work and stuff that you might in a more long filming process.
I mean, we did the ambulances 3 different ways. We would do it on set, like it could be on a buck where you could take it apart. Then we did one on a real ambulance that had rockers. It was on stage where you could just do tighter, more acting performances. And then I would shoot pieces of every scene out in the real road where you're going 60, 70 miles an hour, going around turns. I'm banging my head. They're hurting themselves, because she's like, it's like when she gets bounced around. I mean, that was a real thing. Eiza was trying to say how it's crazy. You're trying to be calm, cool, but like you're still going fast. And it's like this small space where you're trying to save a life and you've got a gun at your head. And there are police literally physically outside the rear window.
One of the things when I spoke to her, I mentioned the scene where she does the surgery with the help of the other surgeons through the thing. And I thought that was such an interesting and pivotal moment for that character. And she mentioned that there had been different versions of the film where that scene was in or not in, and then she spoke to you about wanting it to be in. What was that process like for you on deciding?
It absolutely had to be in. And those 2 doctors, those are my friends. They're both trauma surgeons in Miami. Okay. They helped set up the whole surgery. So what you're seeing is I would FaceTime with them while we're doing this. And they go, this is how it would go down. All right. And when she, you don't have to tell your audience, but when she goes that far inside to whatever, that's how far that thing is.